Hello and welcome to the White Rabbit YouTube channel. Today we are going to discuss the previous episode, which was Admiral E Byrd's flight to the inner Earth. Plus, we're going to talk about alien bases that are on our Earth and the Miami New Year's Eve Nephilim shadow people alien story, which has just hit the news in the last few days. All right, so for everyone that saw the Admiral E Byrd episode, he basically flew to the inner Earth in the North Pole, met the inner Earth people who told him not to use nuclear weapons, and then he relayed this message to his president, the president of the United States of America, and they kind of like just disregarded this message because they were invested in nuclear technology. America is based on it with all their nuclear subs and power stations and endless clean energy. Anyhow, and then the Nazis also met the inner Earth people in New Schwabia here, just over my shoulder there, in 1938-39, and then they got access to the UFO technology, and that's one of the reasons why America is the one plagued by UFOs. But there's a lot of different kind of UFOs with real aliens, no aliens. Some of them are autonomous. There are no people or beings inside. But since we're talking about the inner Earth people, I thought I would talk about the inner. It's not really inner Earth bases, but they're under the Earth. They're under all the highest mountains, and they're interconnected. So, like every good conspiracy theory, starts with the CIA. So the CIA, they invested in a remote viewing program. Sorry. So during the Cold War, the U.S. wants to know what the Soviet Union is doing, and the Soviet Union wants to know what the Americans are doing. So they had all kinds of spies on each other, and what it was found out that the the Soviets, they had a remote viewing program where they could view American assets just through their mind, which that baffled the Americans. So they had to get right on that and get that kind of information as well. It started at the Stanford Research Institute. So it was like an independent research project, and something that they looked at caught the attention of several three-letter acronym name organizations, including the CIA. And so the CIA were interested in because the SRI researcher had seen something they were not supposed to see. It was buried 30 feet under the ground with superconducting shielding, and it was a device that was kind of like a listening station. But what would happen is when the Soviet satellites were flying above the orbit, then this machine could collect the information, just kind of like a number station listening post. But nobody was supposed to know about it. And then all these like university guys are like got access to that. So then the CIA wanted to know more, and I took a few notes about it. So they did some tests. The names of the two named guys were Ingo Swann and Pat Price. These are the two main guys. Another guy comes in later. And basically, the CIA did all kinds of tests, like tell me what is in this sealed envelope. And they could read it and they could see it. And eventually, going out to targets in Russia, they just give some coordinates and they say, tell me what you see here. And then they did. they found that the best way was to give them absolutely no information, just the geographical coordinates. And it was 75 to 95% accurate, which is very high. And this led to Project Stargate, which basically they were given coordinates in Russia, and as they were like traveling through their mind to Russia, they got pulled back to Alaska, which is right here is the Alaskan Triangle, and then right in the middle. Maybe I should move a little bit so you can see it, or do this. So Alaska is above my head. So Alaska Triangle, the 3 points on the north is Barrow, Alaska, and then there's Juneau and Anchorage. So those are the 3 points of the triangle. And since 1988, 16,000 people have gone missing in Alaska, which is 10 times higher than the next province, state, which is Hawaii. 10 times higher. All right. So, and also the Aboriginals of the area of Alaska, they also have legends of like beings appearing and disappearing and appearing and taking their victims with them, and they never reappear again. So one of the reasons there are so many missing cases in Alaska. Another reason is that there are 3 giant mountains in Alaska, and they have negative magnetic anomalies. So that basically just makes the GPS go crazy, and guidance systems don't work, and it's just hard to fly around there. Similar to Admiral E Byrd flying to the inner Earth over the curvature of the Earth here, and then he lost all navigational equipment because they're not on the surface of the Earth anymore. So when Pat Price and Ingo Swann were sent to the coordinates, someone has a question. Go ahead, Carlos. I'll read your question when I see it. So they were brought in to see what was pulling their attention in Alaska. And there was nothing there. It's just a mountain. It's desolate. There's snow, and it's just empty. And he replayed that there. He found nothing. But then he went back on his own time, and I'll get to that in a second. What do you think aliens think of humans? Thank you for your question, Carlos. Well, according to one of the remote viewers, they spoke to aliens and they have an answer. And the answer is just like we see a flock of birds, and 99% of us humans are uninterested in the birds. Maybe a few people are interested scientifically on the migration patterns or how they can fly. So some aliens would be as interested in humans as we are in birds. And they don't care if we kill ourselves or kill each other with guns and weapons or whatever. They just care if we harm the planet, because they need the planet for the resources, and they are sending those resources off planet, which I will get to a little bit later. Thank you for your question, Carlos. And next time you're thinking about aliens, you can think that we're kind of like birds to them. All right. So when the remote viewer went back to Mount Hayes to view on his own time, in his own mind, not working for the CIA, he went into the mountain, and that's when he found all the crazy stuff. He found, let me see my notes here, a huge base, advanced technologies, computers and machines he didn't understand, non-human beings working alongside humans in the US military. And the non-human beings, they weren't really like they seemed more like they were doing a job and then they just do this job. They didn't have all the organs that humans have. It's maybe they were like worker bees, something like that. So, and then this is the same area that actually, in one of my future videos, I talk about all the conspiracy theories in Canada, including the Alaskan Triangle, because it covers parts of Canada. And in it, I mentioned that there's an underground pyramid in the Alaskan Triangle, and this is in the same area as Mount Hayes. The alien, actually, this base is an alien human coordinating base. And all right, so he found that. Oh yeah, so he went inside. He found a bunch of alien stuff, and of course, as you'd expect, a few days later, he was dead. He was walking down, I think, in Las Vegas, and he felt a sharp pain in his leg. And then, less than 24 hours later, he was gone. But he did tell someone about the information. And then, so then the next guy looked into Mount Hayes and also confirmed all the alien tech and machine rooms and coils. Anyway. So let me just tell you that there are 4 alien human cooperation bases in the world. Let me just see here. So there's Mount Perdido in Spain, which is like right on the border of France and Spain, but on the Spanish side. Mount Zeal in Australia. I forgot to mark that one. Oops. Mount Zeal in Australia, somewhere here. Mount Inyangani in Zimbabwe is right here. And these are the 4 interconnected 1, 2, 3, 4 interconnected alien human bases. There are more bases I'll get into later, but yeah, I'll keep that aside for now. So then a different remote viewer comes in to confirm the information from Ingo Swan and Pat Carr, I'm pretty sure his name is. And his name was Joseph McMoneagle, spelt like eagle, but not pronounced that way. So he is the top of his field. Like, he can find missing people for the police, find oil for oil companies and rare gemstones. He worked for the Army and the CIA doing thousands of remote viewing cases. And then he was sent to check out in 1982, 63 degrees, 39 minutes north and 146 degrees, 45 minutes west, which is Mount Hayes. And he basically just confirmed everything that was said about Mount Hayes before. And some of those things are coils buried in the ground, electrical grid, a great sense of power, pipes, masses of electronics, very low frequency feeling, and a huge ground grid forming an electric arena. So it's like massive scale. And it was powered by a miniature nuclear reactor. And he said that seeing all these things were so foreign to him that he had trouble explaining or writing down what he was actually seeing. And then that was basically exactly the same feeling that Admiral E Byrd had when he met the master in the inner Ariane domain. When he was describing the room that he was in, he said it was the most beautiful sight his eyes had ever laid upon, and he didn't have the words from the human English language to describe how beautiful a thing he was seeing. But in this case with what was his name? Joseph McMoneagle, he said he gave the example of a Australian Aborigine from the past that, of course, has never seen a car, and getting them to try to describe the inside of a car is the comparison he gave. So he basically, uh, it's hard to explain. And he also mentioned that the base was there was a dome above the the base, and it was sending out a huge amount of energy into space, which sounds a lot like the Bosnian Pyramid of the Sun in Bosnia. That I have an episode that I will have coming out in the near future. And that goes into more detail about the energy collection and sending signals to very far away, much, much faster than the speed of light. According to that one, the speed of light is slow because, anyway, I don't have the numbers now. But so, moving on to Mount Zeal in Australia. When this area was remote viewed, um, he felt like it was like a storage site, and there were lots of boxes of electronics and buried coils in the ground, which are kind of like energy absorbers. Some people that are really, really into it, they'll take these Dixie cups and then fill them with a coil and fill it with epoxy and just throw them on the ground near like transmitter stations to kind of like absorb the negative or bad energy. So he saw a lot of buried coils in the ground, very advanced technology. He felt like it was like a control center, like NORAD. But he had a very sinister feeling when he was viewing this place. But I need to mention that he only saw the alien human, the alien beings in Alaska, not in these other three locations. Uh, so then there's Mount Perdido between France and Spain, and he said there was a high frequency relay station, like transponder, and all the four facilities are connected to a string of beads in the sky. Uh, and this base was built by people because when he remote viewed, he saw it a few years before present day when it was being built by humans, and he saw helicopters and stuff. Was he? Oh, I have a question from someone called Francis, and he says, "Was he talking only about one race, or was he talking only about one race of multiple races?" Sorry, I'm not sure I understand that question. Um, but to try to answer your question, there's one type of alien in Alaska, and they are coordinating with the U.S. military human scientists the technology of what they're trying to accomplish, and then the humans are in charge of the three other bases in Spain, Australia, and Zimbabwe. So in Zimbabwe, there's a singular mountain. It's the tallest mountain in Zimbabwe. You'd think that would be a place that would stick out. People would want to go there, but if it's anything like Mount Kailash in the Tibet, China, India area, then you definitely can't go there. I'll mention that a little bit later for why. But so anyway, Mount Inyangani in Zimbabwe is a control command center and control and communication center, and they're all connected, but they're turned on, but they're in idle mode. They're not being uh, used right now. It's similar to the Baltic Sea anomaly that I mentioned in the previous video, where there's like a radioactivity around the site, and they feel that there's no electronic equipment will function within 200 meters of the anomaly, and they feel like I feel that if it was turned on to full power, some stuff would happen, but right now it's only in the immediate vicinity, or also like Nan Madal, the weather control station, bringing in more rain to that area than is the highest rain area in the world. So he said that all the four stations in Spain, Australia, Zimbabwe, and USA, Alaska, are like different spokes in a wheel. They're all dormant, but they're transferring and emitting energy to that string of pearls, which just happens to be in a fixed orbital position in our atmosphere. So it's everything is moving all the time. Uh, but this place is not moving. It's not like immediately close like the dark night satellite. It's like way out there, but it's in a fixed position and it's receiving all these signals. Um, he said he was also sent to this station to check out what he could feel, because like they can go anywhere. They can go to the moon. They can go to Saturn. One of the first guys says like, "Oh, Saturn has rings," before we knew about it, and he was right in the end. Anyway, he said that the String of Pearls relay station, which is in outer space somewhere, uh, it's a platform. There are no occupants, but there could be occupants. It can sustain beings, but it's all run autonomously. I hope I said that right. It's fully automated. All right. And he said it had a very, very old and a very, very new sensation. So that the technology is ancient, but it's hundreds and thousands of years ahead of our own technology. So some Francis replied that any other places. Yes. So these triangles here, there are a bunch around the world. Some are smaller, but like I'm talking about the ocean one, like the Bermuda Triangle, the Dragon's Triangle, any ocean triangle. These are all portal areas where ships can go in and out of the portals. They can go from one triangle to another, or to outer space, or to another world. Uh, so and then he when he was investigating these bases around the world, his mind kept being brought to certain locations that were under ocean bases, seabed locations, where this one right here must be. There's the Americans have a base called Awtech, which I mentioned in my previous live video about the Falcon Lake incident and all the UFOs around the world. I mentioned about 50 cases of different UFOs that I have pictures of and showed you guys. All right. So another thing is that for the Admiral E Byrd, oh, sorry, there's the also to answer Francis any other places question. There's Mount Kailash, which is right here with the UFO. It's if you go there, apparently you'll start aging really quickly, but a lot of people can see the UFOs just kind of like flying into the mountain and disappearing. So it's another portal area, exactly the same like Mount Shasta in California, Table Mountain in South Africa, and Mount Kailash. I think, did I write anything else down? No. Okay. So if anybody has any other questions, now is a good time. Otherwise, I have another not so great story about people disappearing for what they comment about. So I mentioned that Admiral E Byrd's secret journal was published by his son after his death, and that seemed to have caused the death of his son, who was named Richard E. Byrd III, because it's the tradition to pass down the same name in the family. And I do have my editor told me I should just put the image up on the screen, but I'm just going to show you my phone because it's much simpler for me and we can improve in the future. So Richard Byrd III was found in a warehouse very far away from his hometown, and he was on his way to accept a medal or honor on behalf of his father. And yeah, let me pull that up right now. I took a few screenshots of that to show you guys. So here is one. It's called The Strange Death of Commander Byrd. Actually, that should be his father, but I'll just show you anyway. Here you go. And then he felt a great responsibility to take care of his father's legacy, but perhaps he took on more than he needed to. And then this is the same one. Orlando Sentinel. Man found dead was no derelict. Admiral Byrd's only son died in old warehouse. It says the old man was found dead in the vacant, debris-strewn warehouse Monday. Looked like a derelict. He was wearing what appeared to be green workman's clothes and one shoe. And I've got one more from the Washington Post. Son of Polar Explorer Byrd found dead in MD warehouse in Baltimore. Where should I? Here we go. Just like people reporting to have seen giants and they talk about it and then they're all excited and tell everybody on the social media sites, and then in the next video you see they say, oh, it was all fake, it's not real, and then if they don't say that, they just disappear, similar to Andrew Dawson about the giant in Canada. And there was another recent case of a giant sighting somewhere around here. And then which brings us to the Miami New Year's Eve alien sighting. Some people call them giants, some people call them shadow people, the Nephilim, which are giants. And the Nephilim are like, they're still around in the world today because they're basically the ancient giants that were wiped away by Noah's flood. But because they weren't permitted to enter heaven or hell, they were doomed to roam their ancient stomping grounds eternally and act as malevolent spirits that are kind of like tricksters, and they're very much believed in the Mariana Islands and the North Pacific. Yeah, that's right. And I cover that in a lot more detail in the upcoming Continent of Mu episode, which this is the half of the Continent of Mu: Easter Island, Hawaii, Rapa Iti, Tonga, Fiji, and over here on this side is the other side of the map, where we have again Tonga, Fiji, Ponape, which is Nan Madal and the weather control station here, up to Iwo Jima and the Unigani Monument, and even all the way to Taiwan, which is going to be amazing. And I'm looking forward to telling you about that in the episode, and then talking about it in the future live. Yeah, I guess that's all. So thank you very much for joining me on the White Rabbit YouTube channel for the cover story of the Admiral E Byrd Inner Earth story. And then, like I said in that video, I'm really looking forward to making the Operation High Jump video, which is about the Americans coming down to Antarctica to rout out the last of the Nazis and failing. And Admiral E Byrd spoke of the land beyond the poles, which would be the land beyond the poles over here. and also the inner earth. So, one of the greatest men to ever have lived, with some of the greatest conspiracy stories that I have to tell. So, as always, uncovering the truth. Sorry. Uncovering the truth, one conspiracy at a time. See you next week on the White Rabbit YouTube channel.